Have you ever had a half-read book sitting on your nightstand for months? A tab open in your browser with an article you keep meaning to finish? Or a project that's been almost done for what feels like forever? You tell yourself you'll get to it tomorrow, but tomorrow comes and goes, and there it still is, hanging over you like a loose thread you can't quite pull. The strange thing is, these unfinished things don't just quietly wait in the background. They take up mental space. They pull at your attention at the oddest moments, making you feel a low-grade sense of guilt or pressure, even when you're trying to relax. This is what we're diving into today: the psychology of unfinished business, and why we sometimes keep the door open to things we could have closed long ago. The first step to understanding this is realizing that our minds are not perfect filing cabinets, neatly sorting and storing experiences once we're done with them. Instead, our minds are more like a computer that keeps certain processes running in the background, sometimes without us noticing. One of the most famous explanations for this is something called the Zeigarnik effect, named after the Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik. In the 1920s, she observed that waiters could remember complex orders with remarkable detail, but only until the orders were completed. Once the plates were served and the bill paid, the details vanished from their memory. The unfinished tasks seemed to have a special stickiness in the brain, keeping them active until closure was reached. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes sense. Our ancestors couldn't afford to forget about incomplete actions, like finding food or building shelter, because survival depended on finishing them. Our brains evolved to keep these open loops alive until they were resolved. In modern life, however, this system sometimes works against us. We live in a world full of interruptions, multitasking, and an endless supply of almost finished things. Each one becomes a tiny mental tab that stays open, subtly draining focus and energy. But here's the twist. We don't just leave things unfinished because we're lazy or bad at time management. Often there's a deeper reason. One common reason is emotional avoidance. Sometimes finishing a task means facing a reality we're not ready for. For example, completing a job application means putting yourself in a position to be judged. Finishing the last chapter of a sad book means saying goodbye to the characters you've grown attached to. Wrapping up a creative project means risking criticism or rejection. In these cases, keeping something unfinished allows us to hold on to a sense of possibility. As long as it's in progress, it can still be perfect in our minds. Psychologists call this protective incompletion. It's a way of postponing the vulnerability that comes with finality. Another reason is identity attachment. When we're working on something important, it becomes part of who we are. You might think of yourself as the person writing a novel or the student working on their degree. Once it's finished, that identity changes. And change, even good change, can feel uncomfortable. So unconsciously, we keep the door open just a bit longer, lingering in a familiar role. There's also the dopamine factor. Starting something new gives us a burst of excitement, the brain's reward system lighting up with the novelty and potential. But sustaining that same level of motivation through the middle and end stages is harder. This middle slump is where many tasks get stuck. Our brains crave the high of starting, but don't give us the same thrill for the slow, sometimes tedious process of finishing. So now that we understand the what and the why, let's talk about the how to close these open loops and free up mental bandwidth. The first tool is awareness. Make an inventory of your open loops, literally write them down. This could be everything from unfinished projects to unresolved conversations. The act of externalizing them already reduces their mental load, because you're no longer relying on your brain to keep the list active. The second tool is defining what done actually means. One reason tasks stay unfinished is because the finish line is vague. Work on my business is not the same as design the homepage and publish it by Friday. The more specific the definition of completion, the easier it is to cross the line. The third tool is breaking the emotional link between completion and fear. If you notice that you're hesitating to finish because of what it might mean, like the end of a relationship, a potential rejection, or losing a sense of identity, try reframing the situation. Ask yourself, what new possibilities open up when this is done? What energy, space, or opportunities might be waiting on the other side? The fourth tool is to create artificial closure. If you've been stuck in a loop for too long, sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is consciously decide that the loop is closed, even if the task isn't perfect. This is especially true for personal projects that have no hard deadline. Letting go can be an act of completion in itself. Finally, there's the concept of micro-closure. Instead of waiting for a big, dramatic ending, you can build small acts of completion into your daily life. This could be as simple as finishing the last page of that book before starting a new one, replying to that email instead of marking it unread again, or doing the dishes immediately after a meal. These small wins train your brain to associate closure with relief and satisfaction rather than anxiety. The benefit of working with these tools is more than just having fewer loose ends. Closing open loops gives you a tangible sense of mental clarity. Imagine your mind as a room. Each unfinished task is like a door that's slightly ajar, letting in noise, drafts, and distractions. Every time you close one, the room becomes quieter, warmer, and more focused. What's even more interesting is that the skills you develop here, defining completion, overcoming avoidance, and embracing closure, are transferable. They can help you finish creative projects, resolve conflicts, and even process emotional experiences in a healthier way. Because here's the thing, not all open loops are physical tasks. Some are emotional. Conversations you never had, apologies you never gave, dreams you never pursued. These can weigh even heavier than the ha. So how do you close emotional loops that don't have a neat, tangible ending? The first step is to acknowledge them. Many of us carry unresolved feelings simply because we've never taken the time to name them. Start by asking yourself, what is something from my past that I still think about more than I'd like? It could be a falling out with a friend, a missed opportunity, or a moment where you wish you'd acted differently. The second step is to process the meaning. Often we're stuck not because the event itself is ongoing, but because the meaning we've attached to it remains unexamined. Write down what you believe that unfinished moment says about you, and then question whether that belief is true or helpful. Sometimes closure isn't about changing the past, but about changing the story you tell yourself about it. The third step is symbolic completion. Our brains respond strongly to rituals, even small ones. You might write a letter you never intend to send, donate an item tied to a painful memory, or visit a place one last time with the intention of leaving it behind. The act of consciously marking something as finished gives your mind a clear signal that the loop is closed. The fourth step is redirecting the energy. Every open loop is holding on to some of your mental bandwidth, and once it's closed, that energy becomes available again. Rather than letting it dissipate, decide where you want it to go. Pour it into a new habit, a creative pursuit, or a relationship that matters to you. That way, the ending of one thing naturally becomes the beginning of something else. It's worth noting that sometimes the reason we hold the door open is because part of us believes we might want to walk through it again. We think, if I never officially close this, I can always come back. But here's the paradox. Keeping the door half open means we never fully step into the next room. By not committing to closure, we're not truly keeping an option alive. We're keeping ourselves stuck in a hallway. Life is full of thresholds, and each one requires us to leave something behind to step into what's next. The beauty of practicing closure is that it strengthens our trust in our own ability to move forward. When you know you can close a loop, you're less afraid to start something new because you're not weighed down by the ghosts of things unfinished. You become more intentional in what you begin because you understand the full arc, from the excitement of starting, through the discipline of persisting, to the satisfaction of completing. If you want a practical way to start right now, try this. Choose one small, manageable loop in your life and close it today. Maybe it's finishing that lingering email, returning an item you've been meaning to take back, or deleting a project from your to-do list that you know you'll never actually do. Pay attention to the relief you feel afterward and let that reinforce the habit. Tomorrow, pick another. Over time, you'll notice that your mental landscape feels lighter, clearer, and more focused. Closing loops doesn't mean you'll never leave anything unfinished again. Life is too unpredictable for that. But it does mean you'll be more aware of what's open and why, and you'll have the tools to decide when and how to close it. That awareness is empowering. It transforms unfinished business from a source of constant background noise into a conscious choice you control. And maybe the most profound thing you'll discover is that closure is not just about productivity, it's about peace. It's about being able to rest without the feeling that there's a door creaking somewhere in your mind. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to walk into a mental space where every door that needed to be closed has been closed, where the air is still and you can hear your own thoughts clearly. That's the gift of mastering the psychology of unfinished business. It's a skill that gives you more than time or focus. It gives you a mind that feels like a home you actually want to live in. And that's exactly the kind of toolkit we're building here together. If this video has helped you see your own unfinished loops in a new light, consider liking it so more people can find it. sharing it with someone who might be feeling weighed down by their own open doors, and subscribing to Mind Unlocked for more practical, science-based tools to help you think, feel, and live with greater CL.